Hello everyone, this is Marina from Soul in the Raw, and today I wanted to chat with you about PTSD. So before I begin, if you are somebody who has had trauma in her or his life recently or in the past, I encourage you to maybe think twice about watching this video, even though I do think it'll be helpful for you. But if you feel that you'll be triggered easily by it, please skip it, because I don't want to take you to a bad place or feeling. I just want to bring up some really interesting points and lessons that I have learned from dealing with this lovely endeavor. So that being said, for the past 2 weeks or so, I've had a couple of friends talk to me about their trauma and their story of PTSD, and actually some of them didn't even know they had it, but from everything they were describing, I was like, yeah, you definitely do. And a while ago, if you haven't seen, I made a video about my story of sexual assault. Actually, I think it was last April, possibly. But anyways, I'll link it up here and in the description. And something I didn't address very much was PTSD. I just talked about what happened, but I think the biggest struggle for survivors is the aftermath. So a lot of us, I think most of us, in some degree or another, we deal with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, in case you didn't know. And there are many different symptoms. I'm not a psychologist. I'm kind of just sharing my experience with you. So I just wanted to talk about what I do to deal with it, and I guess what it has looked like for me in my life. So in my high school years is when I was sexually assaulted, and then after that I was experiencing a lot of trauma. And I didn't really realize at the time until I went to my first psychologist, who told me something really interesting, that they did research on Holocaust survivors, combat soldiers, and sexual assault survivors, and they all exhibited the same symptoms post the incidents, which can be like feeling disconnected from yourself, not sleeping well, freezing in a lot of situations, being easily triggered, being really angry, a lot of things like that. So that really opened my eyes, and it really helped, like just knowing that, okay, this is not me. It's a result of something that happened to me, but it's not who I am, and it's not all consuming. It really helped. And I found that it really helped my friend, who I talked to about this, to understand that maybe she's also dealing with PTSD. I don't know, I guess it just helps you feel more in control and more powerful about the situation when you know that that force that takes you over a few times a week or so is a result of something that happened, and you can change it. So years back, it was very severe for me. Things like, wanting to commit suicide or attempting to commit suicide, depression, not wanting to get out of bed, and things like that. And then gradually it became a lot less, and the episodes would happen a lot less. But I guess something really important that I want to say, that I guess came up in my conversation with my friends about this, is that it's really hard for your environment to understand when you have PTSD, because people, a lot of times I've realized, they think of really traumatic incidents in the same way they would think about regular incidents. Like, okay, you went on vacation somewhere, it impacts your life, maybe you have some memories, but it's not all encompassing. Well, that is not the case with trauma, because really traumatic incidents impact your life immensely in many different aspects, and all of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time. That's the difference between like a happy memory that you go through and something like sexual assault or any kind of abuse, or things like that. They just have an effect on a lot of parts of your life, very diverse parts of your life, where sometimes to strangers it just doesn't make sense. So I can tell you, for me, besides how I would behave towards myself, which is feeling really disconnected, that's why one of the things is, to this day, it's really hard to like even feel when I'm full or not, because of PTSD, because of being disconnected from my body, which makes a lot of sense for somebody who was sexually assaulted. And then just being triggered by random things, a lot of anger. I seem like a really peaceful person, but believe me, sometimes I just feel, and it still happens to this day randomly, so much anger that it's like mind-blowing, and I don't understand where it's coming from, and it's completely unproportional to the situation and things like that. When I first moved back to San Diego, which was like 2.5 years ago, I still had a lot of days of depression, and it was really hard because I just didn't want to work, and I have my own business, so it's a little bit of a challenge when you don't want to work. I didn't want to get up, and it's really hard to explain to people, like if you have meetings or if you have anything on the calendar, you don't always feel like being, saying, oh yeah, today I'm depressed because I was sexually assaulted, So it was hard, and I find that now I have a lot less of those days. And the cool thing is, so let's now go into like strategies of dealing these days. So of course, there was a lot of therapy, and I actually now am not a huge fan of therapy. I don't really relate to it as much. I don't feel attracted to it. I think these days I like more alternative approaches. Meditation was amazing and is amazing. It is, oh my gosh, it has changed my life because it has made me a lot more calm. I wasn't able to sleep a lot, and now I feel like I sleep a lot better. I mean, I do sleep a lot better. I don't feel like, because that's not a feeling, but I just sleep a lot better. And it has just also really helped me connect with myself. It's not perfect. As I mentioned with the food stuff, it's really hard for me to know when I'm full because I just disconnect a lot of times, and I have to force myself to connect back. A lot of people, it comes naturally to. For me, it doesn't. But I'm on the way, and I'm making really great progress. So I'm really proud of myself. I'm really happy about where I'm at. So meditation is a big one. I meditate twice a day, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. That's it. And it has truly, truly been life-changing. It has made me love myself a lot more. I feel proud of myself. I feel that I'm awesome and I'm enough. And yeah, I love it. Besides that, I think for me, I really realized this was really a hard realization, painful and embarrassing. Like there was a lot of shame in it, that I, in some ways, really enjoyed being a victim. And it's not that I enjoyed it, I felt really comfortable with the victim role. And I really liked telling people about what happened to me and seeing their sympathy and attention, and like just feeling like I don't have responsibility over my life in a lot of ways. And I did a lot of thinking about that. It was really, as I said, like shameful to realize, because I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to be like comfortable as a victim, but that's where I was. And I realized that there are a lot of downsides to being a victim, and there are way more downsides than benefits. So that's when everything started to shift for me, and I realized that I really, really want to take responsibility for my life, for everything. So whether it's like I get really angry randomly, it has nothing to do with anything, it's irrational, it's part of PTSD, but I know that I'm the one getting angry and I'm choosing to get angry, and if I want to, I will change it. It doesn't have to be that way. And yes, it's difficult to change my reactions, and it's difficult to take ownership of PTSD and of, dealing with the past, but it's up to us, because all of us have events in our lives that were difficult, and the only person that's going to change the reaction, or maybe you don't control what happened, but you now control your response. So that's really great, because it makes you feel empowered, whereas feeling like a victim is the ultimate disempowering feeling. And taking power back for me, well, first of all, as I described in the video, which you should watch if you want to know my story, one of the greatest things was actually meeting the person who assaulted me, and just really like saying everything I had to say, looking him in the eye, even though it was seriously the most difficult experience of my entire life, the scariest, so much anxiety, so much depression came back and memories and everything. But it left me very, very empowered, because I felt like I took all this burden and I just gave it right back to him. And I felt really strong when I walked out of there, and it was just amazing. And I also felt really in control of the whole situation. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I knew that I wanted to meet him, even though I know that many survivors don't want to meet their offenders, but I really did, and I wanted to say all these things. And then also like looking at him and thinking, wow, I think that he is a victim. Because first of all, this is my assumption, but from knowing him, I feel like I'm pretty sure that he was abused in some way in his life. Otherwise, I don't see a reason for somebody to do what he did. And just recognizing, I once heard this really amazing quote, that there are victims at there are victims at both sides of the gun, and that's relating to like shootings and killing. But I also think in this situation it's very, very true. So realizing that made me feel a lot more empowered. Doesn't mean that he did something good or that I'm okay with what happened, but it just makes me feel a lot more empowered about what happened, a lot more in control about my life, and taking more responsibility for my part of the equation, which is how I deal with this situation. And ever since then, I was really, really, oh, there's an airplane, I'm sorry. Ever since that incident, I did a lot of things. I guess it changed my life in a lot of positive ways. For example, I have worked with sexual assault survivors and volunteered and did a lot of education on the topic. I also am definitely vegan in huge part because of this, because I understand what it's like to be less powerful, like the animals are, unfortunately. And, just understanding power relationships a lot better. When you were on the negative side of them, you do begin to understand them a lot more. You begin to understand people who are feeling powerless a lot more. So I'm really thankful for that. And it's part of my story, but I am the one that's designing and shaping my story, and I get to decide what it's going to look like, what my life is going to look like, and my life is looking great. So I'm really happy about that. And I also, I think in the story I mentioned that I went, my first intention wasn't to go to the police with this. It was actually to do restorative justice, which is a really amazing program that exists in Israel right now. I don't know if it exists anywhere else in the world, where you actually get to sit with the person who was your sexual offender, and you get to tell him everything you want, and to request something. And it's a long process. It's not just one meeting, but it's a lot more of a kind of peaceful and compassionate process towards both sides rather than going to the police. But that never worked out. But I think if I would have done that, it would have been really, really cool. But it's just, that's the way that I see these situations, is that both sides, or not both sides, actually, the offender, of course, I have needs too, but the offender has needs that are not met. And I'm not talking about sexual needs. I want to make this very clear. I'm talking about love or security, control over his life, things like that are not met in life, and so he takes it out on other people. And seeing that has also really made me feel very empowered by the situation. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I feel like having these conversations with my friends for the last 2 weeks has helped them somehow, and I think has taught them just from my experience in dealing with this. So I really hope that it will help one of you. And I would love to know any questions or comments that you have about this. I know it's controversial. I know maybe I said some things that could have surprised you, but yeah, let me know what you thought, and I will see you very soon. Bye.